What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Player Pool. We're going to be looking at the NFL Week 10 main slate for DraftKings and building some lineups. And there are some spots this week that are going under-owned relative to where I think they should be going, and I'm going to get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Player Pool. Going to be breaking down the Week 10 main slate for DraftKings, building some lineups and giving some picks on guys that could be going overlooked or some spots that could be going overlooked this week. I just checked out the ownership right before jumping on the show for the first time, and I'm seeing some areas that we could target, which I thought would be no-brainers for games to target, but they just don't seem to have a whole bunch of ownership on them anyways. But I'll dig into that in a second. Make sure to hit the like button. Give me the 70 likes to put my favorite picks in the comment section as we get closer to lock. And make sure to hit 100 likes if you want to write up for the main slate there. I'll do a write-up if we get 100 likes on what I think are the best maybe games to target and obviously the best plays to target with the likes. But make sure to do that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm looking for 2,200 subscribers. I only need about 40 to get there. So help me get there by the end of week 10. Definitely appreciate that. And other than that, I got the secret weapon coming out here pretty shortly, and you're going to need to be a YouTube subscriber in order to get a free beta preview of that. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can get access to that. And let's go ahead and check out the slate. I'm starting off here with my lineup from last week. I hit 201 points in this one. It was a Joe Flacco double stack. I had him going with Chase and Higgins. Obviously, Higgins went off in that one. Chase did well in that one as well. Not relative to his price, but he did really well. And I ran it back with Loveland because Cincinnati, super weak against tight end. I talked about it on the show last week, but he ended up hitting 32 DraftKings points. And Monangai was the other run back. He had 25.8. He was kind of a no-brainer. You see, he was 70% owned. This is in the slant. I came in not great. It was the 328th place, but I was live to do something because I had James Cook and Rashee Rice in what was supposed to be the game of the week. Both of those guys dudded out. Only got 18.6 out of Rice, and I only got 16.5 out of Cook. But this lineup was live to make a run if those guys had done anything of value. But really just we needed a touchdown out of Cook, and Rice was just kind of a pedestrian game for him last week. But we nailed it on a lot of these other picks. Travion Henderson was the other guy. I probably should have just put in Hunt instead of Henderson. I can't remember what Hunt did. I think Hunt actually scored a touchdown or something. There were plenty of other options, ways I could go on this. I could have gone with Christian McCaffrey and taken Henderson out and then used someone different in the flex. A lot of angles I could have done there, but just didn't pan out. But you can see the process was working. Had it teed up to do something in the afternoon slate, but just couldn't get there with that Chiefs Buffalo game not being as predictable as would have thought. But we'll try to get it this week with some of the matchups that we have. I'm going to lead it off here with, let's see. First, let's switch over to the injuries here, and I'll set up the DraftKings. Let's see. So the first game that I want to go over is New Orleans versus Carolina. And this game, we are looking at a 39.5 point total with Carolina as 5.5 point favorites. We don't see that very often, but New Orleans seems like they're in tank mode. So, not much to like overall about this game, apart from maybe Rico Dowdle. Dowdle, let's see, has been on fire. And really, at 6,300, he seems like he's still underpriced for, like what he's been accomplishing. But he is the highest owned running back on the slate this week. But, there's good reason for it. We saw a 31-point week last week, 5 the week before that against Buffalo. I think that's the week that Chuba Hubbard came back and he was in a split backfield, or at least, like maybe the 7 and 8, he was in a split backfield. But you can see when he gets the bulk of the work, he's pushing 30 plus points, and he's perfectly capable of doing that in this matchup against the Saints. Looking at the Saints, they're giving up 22.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. That's one of the worst run defenses in the league. So really good setup here for Dowdle. As far as the rest of the game, we're in a situation with Olave where Olave just lost Rashid Shaheed from taking targets away from him. So, it sets up Olave theoretically to do well, but unfortunately they switched quarterbacks last week. They went with Trevor Shook, and Trevor Shuck, and he's just not getting the job done with Chris Olave. He doesn't get the memo that you got to pass the ball to Olave more than 4 times in a game. I think the target that he's most interested in, the quarterback's most interested in, is Juwan Johnson, though. Juwan Johnson is the former roommate of Shuck from college, and the Carolina Panthers are actually giving up 14.5 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. So we got a really good setup here for Juwan Johnson. If we wanted to start Rico Dowdle and run it back with somebody, Juwan Johnson would be a good option for us. Other than that, I really like the Panthers D. The Panthers D's been coming on in general this season, so they're teed up here against a shaky New Orleans team. They're 3,500 though, so they're a little bit pricey. But we got Panthers defense as a potential play for us. Ted McMillan, we want to keep an eye on his status. He's looking like he's questionable. He was a late week addition to the injury report, and looks like concern over his hamstring that popped up late week in Friday's practice. So Ted McMillan, if he's out, there's not really anyone else that I'm interested in going to. The Rico Dowdle is probably the best play, and I like Juwan Johnson too. And I don't really see much more in this game that I'd be interested in. So I think we can move on to the next game. New York versus Chicago. This is one of the games that I like this week. And we're looking at sub 10% ownership on Williams and Dart. They're falling in that 5-6% range, which is going to be great for this matchup. We're looking at a total of, let's see, we got a total of 48.5 points, and we're looking at the Bears as 3.5-point favorites in this one. Now, each of these teams has been vulnerable versus quarterbacks. We got Chicago giving up 20.9 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. That sets up Jackson Dart. And we got New York giving up 20.3 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. And that's going to set up, obviously, Caleb Williams. New York has also been a sieve to the running back position. You can take a look at DeAndre Swift here. Looks like he's questionable this week. He's still having a issue with his groin, and he didn't practice on Friday, but it was groin and personal was the reason for that. So, not sure what the latest update is going to be on DeAndre Swift, but that's one to keep an eye on, because if he's out, the Manon guy is going to be interesting. Again, he ran for 176 yards in another cushy matchup last week against Cincinnati. If he gets to take on this this Giants defense by himself. They're giving out 27.3 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So that'll set up Monangai to have an awesome game. On the flip side, New York is only giving up, or Chicago's giving up 22 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback or to the running back position. That, with Tracy is in a timeshare with Singletary. And I don't like either of those guys. I like Tracy more than Singletary, but I don't like either of those guys when they're in a timeshare. I'd much rather take a look over here at Monangai or Swift. The wide receiver situation on New York. Let's see. I had a note for Slate in here. Let's see. So Slayton has been, he's been the highest targeted guy on New York. He's had, 22 or 20 plus targets in each of the past 3 games. That's been the highest. And the Bears are giving up a lot of big plays to wide receivers. They're giving up, according to Rich Rebar over at Sharp Football Analysis, 15.2 yards per catch to receivers and are 31st in points allowed per target to wideouts. So that's going to set up, I think, Darius Slayton here. And I don't know that Slayton's going to have much ownership. Let me check and see what his ownership is. Yeah, his ownership's at 4%. So Slayton hasn't done anything this season, and that's setting him up to have a potentially nice game here. I think that Slayton is 7 targets last week, 5 targets the week before that, 6 targets the week before that. So he's getting the targets. He just hasn't delivered on anything yet. But this is the matchup to do it, with Chicago being vulnerable against those deep passes, and a game that should be competitive, with Chicago able to exploit that New York defense. And on the run back here, we could see some Slayton getting, finally having a good game this season. On the Chicago side, New York is giving up, let's see. New York is giving up 20.9 DraftKings points a game to the to wideout position. And with Odunze, he put up a goose egg last week, so that's going to set him up to potentially be lower owned in this matchup. But we've seen a few duds out of him recently with 0 points, 5 points, 5 points. He's come way down since the bye week. But we could see him come alive here in a good matchup against the Giants. Now we can see this Saints matchup for Chicago was a blowout, so I can understand why he wasn't very involved there. The Chicago matchup is where he went off, and they were losing significantly by a couple touchdowns. There's no excuse for him not to do anything last week other than injury. He was questionable last week, so he did have an injury that he was dealing with, which can explain, maybe he was used more as a decoy in that game against Cincinnati last week. And let's see, as far as this Washington game, that was a tight game too. He only had 5.2 DraftKings points in that one as well. So Odunze, theoretically, he's due to have a decent game. We saw DJ Moore last week. He had a decent game with 23 DraftKings points. Other than that, he has really not done too much this season. But I think the guys, the receivers that I like the most are going to be Odunze and Slayton. Let me get an idea of Odunze's ownership. Let's see if the love of Odunze has worn off yet. Yeah, we're looking at only 3.9. I mean, this is one of the games that's my favorite game to target, and the ownership is panning out in a way that I like as well, with most people not focused on it. Apparently, when I looked at the slate and I read through all the write-ups on it, like my favorite game that stuck out was this New York versus Chicago game. I think we got a couple quarterbacks that can definitely sling it. We got a total of 48.5 points. We're looking at a tight spread of 3.5 points. And we have like a couple defenses that are capable of turning this into kind of a sloppy shootout. So everything about the game lines up. And if we're looking at New York, we also got Theo Johnson has a decent matchup. Theo Johnson he's been okay recently. He's had some decent games. He's only 3,800. So if you wanted to double stack Jackson Dart, Theo Johnson might make a good, stacking partner. And then we could run it back with something like, Monungai and Odunze or something like that. But, that's something that we can dig into when we build our lineups. Jacksonville, Houston. I don't really have an interest in this one. We're looking at Stroud is out. So we got Davis Mills on the docket. He's only at 4,500. Now, Jacksonville's been pretty weak against the pass, especially recently, but they're giving up 21.3 DraftKings points a game on the season. So good matchup here for Davis Mills. We're talking about a veteran coming into a decent matchup. He's got good weapons in Christian Kirk is healthy, and Nico Collins is also healthy. Playing against Jacksonville team in Houston, I don't mind the idea of using Davis Mills in this one. We might see him have more success in this offense than we did with CJ Stroud, who kind of fell off a cliff the last couple years. But we saw him come in last week. He had 30 attempts, 137 yards only. That was against Denver's defense, though. I don't hate the idea of using Davis Mills in this matchup this week. I would imagine that Houston's going to be wanting to be aggressive in this one. With Jacksonville, we're looking at Brian Thomas is out, and Travis Hunter's on IR. Let's just go over to the injury page and check out the Jacksonville situation here. So Jacksonville, as far as their receiver core, they've just been decimated. We're missing Hunter Long. We're missing Brian Thomas Jr. We're missing Travis Hunter. Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter are the two main receivers here. So we're looking at Jacoby Myers just joined the team, and we got Parker Washington, who is interesting to me. Parker Washington's just one of those guys that always seems to be involved in this offense, even when Trevor Lawrence just sucks and he's not getting the ball out to his weapons, and everybody's just underperforming on this team. And Lawrence has been running balls in because he can't throw touchdowns. It's just been a weird season for the Jaguars, and they've been winning games regardless. If we're looking at the offensive line, we got Ezra Cleveland and Cooper Hodges out. Brenton Strange still on IR, the main running back there. Nickelback is hurt for the Jaguars, so that's something to keep in mind for Christian Kirk for us. And then, of course, we got Travis Hunter, we got McLeod, we got Murray and Ransaw all on IR. So we got some damage to this Jacksonville team. We'll check Houston while we're here. With Houston, we got CJ Stroud out. We got the fullback. Johnson is on IR. We got Harrison Bryant, questionables. Cade Stover is IR. That's going to set up Dalton Schultz here. We got half the offensive line here is hurt for the Texans, so that's not good. Not good for our guy Davis Mills. We're looking at the nickelback for Houston also out, so that's even more for Parker Washington there. We got safeties out as well on the Houston side. We got Jimmy Ward is out. As far as the right cornerback, we're missing a right cornerback, so their entire defense is banged up, but they do have Will Anderson and Derek Stingley, their main guys are healthy, but they're still banged up overall. Just the entire team for Houston is banged up, but that sets it up for Dalton Schultz, like I talked about. Schultz is at 3,600. He got 8 targets last week. With Davis Mills, he might have more propensity to throw it to the tight end position. So that could make Dalton Schultz interesting this week. Nico Collins last week ended up with 11 targets with Davis Mills. He's been very slow this year, has not had very many big weeks, but Nico Collins, he's down in that 6,700 range, so he's getting cheaper. And it's a matchup where the Jaguars are giving up. Jaguars are giving up 23.2 DraftKings points a game to the wideout position. So I don't mind Davis Mills stacks. And you can stack him with Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz because Jacksonville's giving up 18.7 to the tight end. They're giving up 23.2 to the wideout position, and they're giving up 21.3 to the quarterback position. And we saw Houston's defense a little bit banged up. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville's able to do something. I don't know who I'd run it back with, maybe Parker Washington, but really banged up on the Jacksonville side. So kind of a tough one to get behind here, but there are some options. Buffalo, Miami. Josh Allen has just shredded Miami historically. He had 23 DraftKings points in the last game against them. And, he's hit over 20 DraftKings points just about every week. He had a biggest week in week 1. He scored 42 DraftKings points. That was against Baltimore when they played from behind and made a fourth quarter comeback. As far as the total, we're looking at a 49.5 point total on this one with Buffalo as 9.5 point favorites. So we're really going to be struggling to put this Buffalo passing game in here, knowing that, they're not going to be going, full throttle throughout the whole game. But Miami's also giving out 24.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. They're giving up 16.9 to the tight end position. So this aligns with everything that Buffalo's been doing well this year. We've got Dalton Kincaid in a good matchup. We got James Cook in a good matchup. We got Josh Allen in a good matchup. And on the other side, Buffalo's been weakest against the running back. They're giving up 23.3 DraftKings points. So that sets up Achane as a run back there. And he's game script proof because they use him in the passing game so much, and sees his his targets increase as they're losing. By the way, that Houston Jacksonville game was a 38.5 point total with Houston as 1.5 point favorites in that one. So let's move on to the Baltimore Minnesota game here. Baltimore, Minnesota, we're looking at a 47.5 point total with Baltimore's 4.5 point favorites in this one. Baltimore's been exploitable by quarterbacks, giving up 19.3 DraftKings points a game. JJ McCarthy had a decent game last week. He's only 4,900. Like, the guy just looks like just like a squid. So I'm just not. It's hard to get behind JJ McCarthy, but he did refer to himself in the third person this week as 9. So, that kind of makes me want to start him, like just for the entertainment value, to see how he can perform against Baltimore after making a statement like that. It was a ridiculous statement. I don't have the I would recommend you guys look it up and see exactly what he said, but it was so stupid that it makes me want to start JJ McCarthy just because of it. And he does have that good matchup against Baltimore. Baltimore's defense is getting healthy, though. That's the only thing to be concerned about. They've given up 24 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, and McCarthy's got the weapons in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They've also been giving up 14.3 to the slot. Keep in mind, like a lot of this was before they started getting healthy. So you got to take that all with a grain of salt. But Jalen Naylor, main slot guy here, he hasn't really done too much. On the Baltimore side, the tight end's in a good spot. They've been giving up 14.9 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. That sets us up with Mark Andrews here, or potentially Isaiah Likely. Let's take a look at the injury report. I want to see what Minnesota's injuries are looking like. Aaron Jones is questionable. We got Josh Oliver is out. That's good for Hawkinson. Center Ryan Kelly is on IR. That's not good. Zeke Correll is on IR. Okuda is out. We got Theo Jackson questionable at the nickelback. Overall on the defense, pretty healthy for Minnesota there. So with Baltimore, let's take a look at Baltimore. All right, so we're still missing Matabuke. He is still on IR. Broderick Washington on IR. Tavius Robinson on IR. Bilal Cone on IR. Bunch of other guys either out or on IR, but we're missing, or we got the main cogs back. We got Woozy is in, Humphrey is in, Hamilton is in, Wiggins is in. You know, Roquan, I think Roquan was hurt a little bit in the beginning of the season, but he's in. Like they're healthy in general, so not great for the matchup for Minnesota. But if we get Baltimore aggressive in this game because they want to, you know, come out swinging and make sure that they don't screw this up, Lamar Jackson is definitely going to be in play versus Minnesota. We can check real quick and see what Lamar Jackson has done versus Minnesota in his career. Just waiting on the web page to load for me. Let's see. Try something else here. All right, so Flores has a history of success against Jackson with aggressive blitzing, but Jackson has shown significant growth in handling pressure, blah, blah, blah. So in 2021, Flores was able to blitz them aggressively and hold them to 10 points, 10 total points in that game. There's been a couple other times they matched up on just not the page that I'm trying to get is not loading. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share Pro Football Reference. Lamar Jackson. Go to the career game logs here. I don't know why it's loading so slow here. All right, let's go to opponents. Let's check out Minnesota. Doesn't look like Lamar has faced Minnesota. So he must have faced Flores when Flores was with. Oh no, here's one with Minnesota. That was in 2021. I don't think Flores wasn't there yet. So let's go to Miami. So Miami, we had Baltimore winning 59-10 in 2019. That was, basically one of Lamar's first seasons as a starter. In 2021, they were held to 10 points, but he had 38 points in 2022. I believe Flores was still there in 2022. But let's see. I can't be sure of that unless I see. No, Tyreek was there, so it was after Flores. But so it looks like kind of a mixed results there against Flores. He's had a good game and a bad game against him, but it'd be interesting to see what he's able to do against Minnesota in this game. If they're going to be aggressive with blitzes and stuff, that might be bad for Lamar, or it's going to open up opportunities in the with guys open deep, and obviously Lamar Jackson can take advantage of that. Let's see. As far as the wide receiver position, Minnesota's been giving up 23.4 DraftKings points a game to the wide receiver position, to wideouts specifically. Zay Flowers runs a lot in the slot. Let's see what the best matchup here is. Best matchup is the let's see. Best matchup is the slot according to DVOA, but they've only been giving up 7.6 DraftKings points a game to slot receivers. But that could set up Mark Andrews because, like I said, Minnesota's given up 14.9 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. But I don't mind Flowers in this game. I think it's a good setup for Flowers. If we wanted to double stack it with Flowers and Andrews, I think that's a good way to go about it. There's plenty of guys to run it back with between Jefferson and Addison specifically. But, it gives us some options for this Baltimore game, which should be, I'm guessing it's going to be popular. Take a look at Cleveland, New York. Only one I'm interested in this game is Quinshon Judkins. Jets are giving up, let's see. Jets are giving up 23 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. And they just got rid of one of their key defenders. Let's see, what was his name? I think it was Quinion Williams. But they, one of the key run stuffers. Let me see what his grade was. Let's see, Quinion Williams run defense grade. All right, so we're going to look over here at the grade. This will help us kind of figure out, like, if him being gone now, how it's going to affect the running game for the other side here. So he had a run defense grade of 90.8. So, yeah. So this is going to be significant for Judkins here. It makes his matchup a whole lot easier. They're already giving up 23 DraftKings points a game to the running back position, but that's going to set up Judkins to have an even easier matchup here. So Judkins, let me get an idea what his ownership is. Running back, Judkins, we're looking at about 15%. So it's still a little steep, but I do like Judkins in this one. As far as the other matchups that we have in this game, Jets Cleveland's given up 23.8 to the wideout position, which is good for Garrett Wilson, but it depends on how much you trust him with Justin Fields throwing him the ball. But quarterbacks on Cleveland, the Jets are giving up 18.8 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position, but not a lot of faith in that rookie quarterback they got there. Looking at a 37.5 point total too in this one. So I think overall, there's really nothing here of interest for me except for Judkins and the Browns D. They're at 2,900. They're still pretty affordable. Not really interested in that Jets D though after all those trades. Oh, we got rain situation here too, so keep an eye on the weather in that one tomorrow. All right, so we got New England versus Tampa Bay next. This is another one that's an interesting game this week. For this game, we're looking at a 48.5 point total with Tampa Bay as 2.5 point favorites in this one. And that's kind of surprising to me with the injuries that we're seeing in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's entire receiving core is basically out. We're missing Godwin is out. McMillan's still on IR. Evans on IR. Bucky Irving is out. He was a big part of their passing game as well. Let's see. On the defense, we're missing Hassan Reddick is out. That's interesting for the New England run game. We're also missing Rashad Wisdom, J.J. Roberts, Marquise Watts, David Walker, Kalisha Cansey. So a lot of guys out on the Tampa Bay side, including some key weapons on the offense. For the New England Patriots, we're looking at Ramondre Stevenson is out. That's good for Trayvon Henderson this week. But he's in a tougher matchup against the Bucs. Kayshon Boutte is out. That's good for Kyle Williams, the rookie. But they spread the ball around too much, and none of these guys get enough of a workload to really be significant, except for maybe Diggs. And we're looking at a fullback out. We're looking at a right guard out. And other than that, we're looking at Christian Elise on the linebackers is out. Other than that, I think we can consider in this one, both quarterbacks are going to be in play. Drake May. Let's see what we're looking at here. Both of them have middling matchups, but these are both quarterbacks that have shown propensity to be able to overcome that kind of stuff. I'm more interested in the spread here being 2.5 points with the 48.5 point total. Because if this game's going to be close, then these quarterbacks are going to be aggressive throughout the game. And, Baker Mayfield, we see it all the time, but he's at 16.9 DraftKings points is what the Patriots are giving up to the quarterback position, and they're giving up 17.3 is what the Bucs are giving up for the quarterback position. Now, the Bucs have a terrible matchup for the running back. Rashad White was already, like a shaky start as it was, but they are only giving up 17.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. And New England's only giving up 18.3 to wideouts and 8.8 to slot receivers. So really, like, the only weakness against this New England defense has been the tight end position. So that could put Cade Otton in play for us. Take a look at Cade Otton real quick. Cade Otton, 5 targets, 9 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. Baker's not afraid to throw the ball to whoever. So we can take a look at Fantasy Pros here and take a look at who's been getting the snaps. Godwin, is out, obviously. Let's see. Tez Johnson had 71% snap count. Ryan Miller, 34%. Sterling Shepard, 41. Egbuka, 88. So it's basically Egbuka and Tez Johnson are the main guys. Let me see if we can get an idea of Tez Johnson ownership. $11.7. So he's at 4,500. He's pretty cheap. Take a look at Tez Johnson real quick. So 4,500, he cheap price. He's been getting targeted 6'9", 3'4". Tez Johnson and Cade Otton both in good spots this week from a opportunity standpoint. Egbuka, 3 weeks in a row of duds. Don't like to see that, but that was against Detroit, New Orleans, where you shouldn't have. Well, they won 23-3 in that game against New Orleans right before the bye. And San Francisco, he only had 4.4 in that game. It looks like they won that one pretty handily too, though. Tampa Bay just playing well in general this year. I would tend to lean maybe Tez Johnson in this one because the matchup's a little bit shaky. So maybe the focus is more on Egbuka from the Patriots side. And if Baker's going to be aggressive still, we could see Tez Johnson and Cade Otton have good games. For the Patriots, it's really without Booty in there. We got Douglas as an option. Like the Bucs have been weak against the running back position, giving up 23.5. I think most of that's through the air, and that's what sets up Henderson. Henderson had 6 targets last week with no Ramondre in the lineup. So Henderson's capable of being a passing weapon if you wanted to stack Drake May with somebody. The difference in price between these guys, 62 and 6,400. Drake May's been one of the top quarterbacks in the game. Hunter Henry is also like in a decent situation. He's at 3,500. 6 targets, 5 targets, 11 targets. He's had some big target weeks this season, so he's going to be in play. Defensive wise, maybe the Patriots. Patriots could be interesting this week if Baker gets overly aggressive. They are playing in Tampa Bay though, so that's in consideration. Arizona versus Seattle. I'm not really interested in this game either. So this game, we are looking at let's see, what are we looking at here? Arizona versus Seattle. We're looking at a 45.5 point total with Seattle 6.5 point favorites in this one. They just picked up Rashid Shaheed on top of it. But, Arizona's been a good defense. I said it when the Dallas game for Showdown the other day, when I said that, don't expect it to go over the total and maybe Dallas will struggle a little bit against Arizona's defense, which happened. And, I'm not really high on the passing game here against Arizona's defense, just the way that they've been playing. But they have been giving up, let's see, 19.4 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. So if you wanted to start Njigba, like he's obviously one of the best players in the game. Just about every week over 20 DraftKings points, except for the week 4 game versus Arizona. So if you want to put a knock against Njigba, there's one for you. Shaheed joins the team. He might actually open up targets for Njigba by joining the team. So this could actually end up being a good thing for Njigba. The person that hurts is going to be Torrey Horton, he's already listed as doubtful. We got the one good week out of him. We drafted him in the 18th round in best ball this offseason. I put out a profile video on him, and I got it in right before he started to make his climb. And so hopefully people who watched the best ball content in the offseason got a good exposure to Torrey Horton. But he put up 20 DraftKings points for us last week. He put up an 18-point week for us in week 3. So he definitely paid off, his cost in best ball for us at least. Cooper Kupp is questionable. He really hasn't done anything this year. We saw Marvin Harrison have a breakout week last week with 22.6 DraftKings points. With Harrison, the Seahawks are only giving up 15.8 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. They've been more vulnerable in the slot, giving up 12.9 DraftKings points, and the tight end giving up 15.3. So Trey McBride, if I was going to start anyone on the Cardinals, would be my focus. Had another touchdown last week, but he's been on a roll with touchdowns with Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback. Faces this tough matchup where maybe Jacoby Brissett will lean more on Trey McBride this week. And Mike Wilson, going to be interesting at slot. If they're playing from behind and they need to throw a bunch to Wilson, he's never gotten over. There's just no upside with this guy. He's gotten like 6 targets as his max so far this season. So yeah, I don't think we need to dive too deep into the receivers here. Like Kenneth Walker is theoretically teed up to have a decent one in this one. If Seattle is 6.5-point favorites, they're playing in Seattle. The Cardinals are giving up 21.2 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. But he's in a timeshare with Charbonnet. So I really don't like either of these guys this week, but Kenneth Walker would be my lean, but tough to get behind, but he's at 5,300. So if he could put up a 21.8-point week at 5,300, he'd pay off his salary. So he's a good cheap guy for us if we need a cheap guy. With defenses, I think the Seahawks defense is in play, but they're 3,600. So pretty pricey there. Not really interested in any of the running backs on the Cardinals side. Made the mistake. I think I had Knight in the captain in that game. It's kind of embarrassing. And the receiver that I liked, I didn't like Harrison last week. Jones is the guy that I liked last week, and he put up a complete goose egg. So he went from a game with 8 targets to 2 targets to no targets. Like Zay Jones, just complete bust. Found out before the game that Marvin Harrison's father had talked some smack about Marvin Harrison, and the team made it a point to get Harrison involved early and often in that game. And it was just like, what do you do in that situation? I didn't see that news. Otherwise, I'm a narrative guy, so I would have been all over it. But I just didn't see that blurb. But let's move on to the next one. Rams versus San Francisco is another game that I like. This one, we're looking at a 50.5-point total with the Rams as 3.5-point favorites. Matthew Stafford has been on a tear. 26 DraftKings points, 27 DraftKings points, 29, 30. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns. He's just been on a tear. And he's facing in a high total game against the defense giving up 17.8 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. Now, this is kind of a revenge game for the Rams. Let's see what kind of injuries we got on the Rams side. All right, so we're missing Outwell, and Whittington is questionable. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, though, are like the entire offense over here, along with Kyron Williams. And their defense looks pretty healthy. Witherspoon is on IR still. It looks like they moved our guy Forbes over to left cornerback now. So whoever is lining up on the right side of the field is who we would be interested in on San Francisco's side. And it looks like that might be Kendrick Bourne, who's got about 34% of his routes on the right side of the field. I think they just, Juwan Jennings is primarily on the left side. So if we want that Forbes matchup, he's not a starter anymore, but we would get it more, I believe, with Kendrick Bourne this week. So the overall points that the Rams are giving up, they're giving up 26.7 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. I think they just picked up somebody in for some reason I was thinking that they picked up somebody in free agency, but maybe not. So San Francisco in this last game that they played against each other. Let's go. I forgot to look at the San Francisco injury report here. Take a look at that before we get into this. Purdy is questionable. I think he's out already. Pearsall is out. Ayuk's still out. All these guys out. Defense is where we're concerned with the 49ers. Fred Warner on IR. Trey Tomlinson on IR. Jacob Robinson on IR. All these guys on IR. Nick Bosa. Taron Jackson. Bunch of guys questionable. We got basically their entire defense is questionable. But, we're talking about Shanahan in his marquee matchup against McVay. Let's go over and look at the last few years of McVay versus Shanahan here. We'll go to Matthew Stafford over on Pro Football Reference and take a look at his game logs. We're going to sort it by opponent. We go down here to San Francisco. All right, so let's look at these most recent game totals here. We had 23-26 in overtime, 12-6. That was a low-scoring game, obviously. We had 27-24, 23-30. We had that 14-31 game, 9-24. So those were both pretty weak games in 2022. Then we had that 27-24 game. 27-30 is in there too. That was against Detroit though. That was when Stafford was in Detroit. So we've had some decent scores in this matchup between these two teams, and Rams are going to be looking to avenge that loss earlier this season when they lost 23-26. On the San Francisco side, though, we got Jennings is back this week, and we also got Kittle back. So he's going to have a lot more weapons, Mac Jones, than he had in that last game. And Los Angeles is already vulnerable to wideouts. San Francisco is also giving up 17.4. Yeah, Los Angeles is vulnerable to wideouts, giving up 26.7 DraftKings points. They're giving up 14.4 to slot too. So Mac Jones at 5K is interesting. And, Stafford at 6,500, he's interesting too. McCaffrey is obviously, he goes without saying. Dude scores 30 plus points pretty easily. Kyron Williams is in play for us. Kittle, I mentioned, has not done much, but we could see him step it up here in a marquee matchup. And defense-wise, I don't mind either of these. Or actually, I take that back. I don't mind the Rams defense this week. Let's go to Detroit, Washington real quick. This one, we are looking at a 49.5 point total with Detroit as 8.5 point favorites. Detroit in this matchup versus Washington, who knocked them out of the playoffs last year. Detroit is a team that likes to get revenge. The problem is they're playing in Washington, though. And Goff's outdoor road splits against Kansas City, in Kansas City, 16.8 DraftKings points. In Cincinnati, 21.1. That wasn't too bad. In Baltimore, 12.7 DraftKings points. And in Green Bay, 11.9 DraftKings points. Road, outdoors is not a good mix for Jared Goff in general. So if they're going to stomp Washington in this game, I would imagine it's going to be on the ground. And Gibbs has not done much of anything this season. He did have that 40-point game a couple weeks ago against Tampa. But if we're looking at Gibbs and or Montgomery in those weeks where they played on the road outdoors, we saw 15 DraftKings points against Green Bay, 26.9 versus Baltimore, 16.7 only versus Cincy, complete dud versus Kansas City. Let's see what Montgomery has done. Only 8.3 versus Green Bay, 32.4 versus Baltimore, 18.2 versus Cincy. So one of these guys typically goes off in these outdoor road games, except for that Kansas City game. So something to keep in mind for the Detroit side if we want to think of them like stomping the Commanders. Detroit also coming off a recent loss too. Now, if I was going with a wide receiver in this game for Detroit, the guy would be Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Washington giving up 20 DraftKings points a game to the slot position. So that's a really good matchup for Amon-Ra. They've also been vulnerable deep, though. So Jameson Williams is going to be in play for us as well. I wouldn't mind pairing Williams or Amon-Ra with one of those running backs in like a little mini game stack, running it back. Let's see what else. Oh, Washington has also been giving up 15.7 DraftKings points a game to tight ends, so Laporta's in play as well. With Washington, Detroit's been giving up 18.9 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They've been giving up 12.6 to the slot. So Debo could be interesting in this one. Debo, but he hasn't done much of anything recently either. But, he's shown he's capable of putting up like 20-plus DraftKings points in this offense. So he does have upside, and he's only 5,600. So Debo's in play as a run back for us. Not really interested in Ertz this week or any of these running backs on Washington's side. All right, guys, let's get into the lineup builds. Make sure to hit that like button. Get me to 70 likes to put my favorite picks in the comment section. Get me to 100 likes for a write-up. Let's see. Who do we start off with here? Let's start off with New York and Chicago. Subscribe to the channel, too. I need to get up to 2,200 subscribers. It's been taking a little bit longer to get to this benchmark than we have on our other ones. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And let's see. First of all, let's get rid of this game. Looking at New York, Chicago stack. Let's go with Dart. And let's go with Odunze as the run back. Let's go with Darius Slayton. And let's assume that maybe DeAndre Swift. Let's see what is not practicing Friday. Let's say he's a surprise scratch in this one. Let's go with Mangangai. And I don't hate using Theo Johnson in this as well. So we got like a pretty big stack here. Opens us up to look at one of these other games that we might like. I like this Baltimore-Minnesota game. And I like the, Detroit-Washington. Let's get some of these Detroit guys in here. Let's get Amon-Ra in there. And let's go with Gibbs. Still leaves us with 4K. Going to defense. Let's pick out our defense. Let's see, Dolphins. I don't like that matchup. I don't like the Commanders matchup. I don't like Arizona's matchup. Minnesota versus Baltimore. Not interested there. Not interested there. New England is the cheapest guy that I would like. Jacksonville, Houston. I don't hate it. Jacksonville's shown an ability to turn the ball over in the early part of the season, but they kind of fell off a cliff recently. Jets D, I don't hate. I don't really like either. Browns D is at 2,900. Here's one that we could go with. Let's go with the Browns D against Justin Fields. Leaves us with 5,300 for a last remaining spot. Let's put Amon-Ra in the wideout position. That's going to leave us with 5,300 for our flex. Kenneth Walker is an option there. If you want to take a chance on Rashid Shaheed. You also got Charbonnet. We got Khalil Shakir in that matchup versus Miami. David Montgomery, if we wanted to go double stack. Let's get rid of Gibbs. Let's put Montgomery in. And let's see what that leaves us with our flex. 8,300 for the flex gives us options like Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, James Cook, Achane. I want to get up to McCaffrey ultimately. Let's put McCaffrey in there. Let's downgrade here somewhere. All right, let's downgrade our tight end here. Likely in that matchup I was talking about versus Minnesota is interesting. Oh, Judkins was a guy that I liked. Judkins is at 6,500, though. He's gotten expensive. Let's see. You know what? Let's go a different way. Let's get rid of. Let's get a cheaper defense here. I'm going to go with the. It's hard to pull the trigger on Minnesota, even though they've had success against Lamar in the past. I'm going to go with Jacksonville. Save us a few hundred. And for tight ends, that leaves us with options like, oh, Mark Andrews, perfect. So I don't have him running back with anyone, but we got Detroit, a couple guys from Detroit that I like. We got the New York-Chicago game, pretty well represented in this lineup. And then we got a couple one-offs in McCaffrey, and that would be Mark Andrews as well. Both in matchups that I like. So that's a pretty good direction right there for a Jackson Dart lineup. Let's see if we want to flip it. We're going to flip that shit. We're going to go with Caleb Williams to Odunze. And let's run it back with Slayton again. I like that Slayton. I like his price and I like his setup here. And let's put Swift in this one. Let's say Swift is healthy in this. So let's get him in there. Give Caleb a second weapon. All right, let's go over to running back position. Scrolling down, let's get Judkins in this one. Let's get Judkins and let's get that Cleveland D. $6K per position. We could go with let's go with Amon-Ra again. No, let's go with Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams. He's cheap at 4,900 too. And we go with Jameson Williams. Let's try to go McCaffrey. Leaves us with 4,300 in the flex or in the tight end position. We can get Dalton Kincaid in there. He's in a good matchup. We can get Otten in there. Plenty of options there. And I like the build. Let's put Amon-Ra, see what that does. Oh, we can't do that. If we put Amon-Ra in there and then knock McCaffrey down to Gibbs. Let's see. Can't do that either. So let's go with Montgomery. 4,800 for tight end. Let's go in a different direction here. Let's get rid of Judkins. Let's put McCaffrey. No, let's put Gibbs in again. So we got Gibbs and Amon-Ra. Let's get a cheap tight end. I'm going to go with Cade Otton here. And that's 4,400 in the flex. Let's get rid of that Browns D. Let's put someone cheaper in the defense. We get Jags in there. Leaves us with 4,700 in the flex, which sets us up for options like Tootin, Parker Washington. There he is. Um, a lot of these low-end running backs, but we also got Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson's only at 4,500. I don't mind putting him in there. Laporta, we already got too much Detroit in there. Kincaid, I don't hate Kincaid. Going double tight end there. Should be a low-scoring week, so I don't mind double tight ends this week. So we got some options there. Like if that's the direction that we want to go, you can always mess around with it. If you want to, maybe we want to put like Montgomery instead of Gibbs. If you want to do that, then our flex position leaves us with like Devontae Adams, James Cook, Devin Achane, plenty of great options there. Igbuka, Derrick Henry. Let's clear that out. And let's do a Baltimore, Minnesota, New England, Tampa Bay. Let's do one of these Rams versus San Francisco games, stacks. This one I'm going to go Mac Jones in this one now that he's got the weapons. You know what? No, I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. Let's go Stafford to... Only problem with Stafford is we got to double stack him. And Nakua and Adams are both expensive. So let's go with Adams and Nakua. Let's see if we can make this work. Let's get David Montgomery. We know he's cheap. Let's get a cheap defense in there. Go with the Jags again. Tight end, we can save some money on. But let's go with Kittle in the tight end because we want to run back here. He's only at 4,500. McCaffrey. We could theoretically get McCaffrey in. But let's go with... Let's go with a cheaper running back here. Walker is a consideration. In that matchup that we saw was pretty good. Let's go with... Let's go with Walker. Screw it. All right, that leaves us with 4,800 per position. Already seen a few cheap ones that we like. See, let's go with Slayton. And that leaves us with 5,400 in the flex. Let me see. I'm liking Slayton a lot this week for some reason. We can get Jordan Addison in there. He's pretty cheap at 5,400. You know, I haven't used any Rico Dowdle. How much is he? He's at 6,300 this week. Let's get him in there instead of Montgomery. Oh, no, instead of whoever I just took out. We got Montgomery and we got Dowdle. And then we're left with 4,400 in the flex. And options here, Laporta. Laporta give us a second Detroit guy in this lineup, which I don't mind against Washington. We can go Kincaid. You know, like a double tight end. Double tight end doesn't kill me this week with all the way that these are kind of coming together. And let's get past these stupid running backs here. Bateman, Otten, another one of those running backs. Tez Johnson. Or no, it's not Tez Johnson. There's a lot of T. Johnsons. 4,500. So we're 100 short of Tez. If you wanted to get him in there, you could swap out Jag Steve for someone else. But, that gives us pretty good direction for a double stack Stafford build. But ultimately, I'd like to, if I was doing this, I'd like to get Christian McCaffrey into the build, but it just doesn't allow us to do that. We just don't have the salary for it. All right, let's clear this out. Let's do one more on the other side. Let's go with Mac Jones. And we're going to stack him with McCaffrey. And let's run this one back with Nakua and Adams. Let's get our cheapies in there. Let's go with David Montgomery again. Detroit, or for defense, let's go with the Jags again. For tight end, let's go with Kittle. Get that double stack in there for Mac Jones. 3,700 per guy. Let's look at a wide receiver who's cheap. I did see a couple that were interesting. I mean, this could be a Tesla week, honestly. I'm going to go with where's Tez Johnson? Let's just go with Tez Johnson. He's pretty cheap. And that's going to leave us with 3K for a final flex position. I did see there was some receiver that was 3K. Robbie Chosen. I can't remember who it was. But, we can skip over that. Let's just go with a tight end. There's plenty of tight end options for us. Likely, again, sticking with that Baltimore game. Let's see. Dolchich is another guy on Miami. If we can find $200, we could get up to, or we could find $400, we get up to Andrews. What other defenses do we have here? I don't hate Arizona versus Seattle, just the way that Arizona's been playing. And they didn't complete goose egg. They put up 5 points against the Seahawks last time they played. Baltimore versus Miami versus Baltimore is in play. Let's just go with the Cardinals here. And that gives us the ability to put in Mark Andrews in the flex here. So pretty good spot there. Like I don't mind going with a build like this. We're just hoping that, the Cardinals don't get stomped. But we got a lot of expensive guys in here, and a lot of like our lower price guys have upside, so we're not overly like worried about them. But so there's a few lineups, a few different ways to go. I'll have more complete thoughts once we get into closer to the game. Make sure to hit that like button. 70 likes gets you the picks, and 100 likes gets you the write up. Make sure to open up an account on Underdog too. Use the promo code SEEK. This is how I make my money. You play $5, you're going to win, or not win, but they're going to give you $100 in bonus funds. It says 50 on the graphic. Ignore that. It's really 100. And BetMGM, open an account there. Use the promo code HEATER1500, and they're going to match you up to $1,500 on your first bet if it loses. So you place $200 bet, you lose. They're going to give you $200 in bonus funds. So take advantage of those deals. Like I said, that's how I make my commissions and make my money. So appreciate that. And stay tuned for the secret weapon, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.